What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Gaelic Gridiron podcast. We are now on the countdown to the return of the Global Ireland Football Tournament, just under a month to go. And as part of that, the headline fixture will feature the IMG Academy out of Florida taking on the Episcopal School of Dallas. And joining me now is the ESD Eagles head coach, Mr. Richard Williams. Coach, thanks for being here. How are you?
Doing great, man. Thank you for having me. I'm excited for the opportunity and just glad to talk about it. And we're gearing up and ready to go.
Yeah, it's going to fly in now, and it's going to be an absolutely fantastic event. American football, of course, is getting bigger and bigger every year in Ireland. But before we jump into that and talk about the game, can you give us a bit of background about you and your coaching career and how you came to be in the top job at the Episcopal School of Dallas?
Sure. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of that. I went
Spare
to
us no detail.
I went to a high school that's actually in our conference now called Kincaid. They're one of our SPC member schools. SPC stands for Southwest Preparatory Conference. Graduated from there and went to Rice University and had the opportunity to play football there as a running back. Injured my knee, but went on to work in the corporate world for ExxonMobil. So I ended up being a global marketing manager for 17 years working with them. And then my son started playing football when I was stationed in Maryland. And it was a Pop Warner League. They didn't have any coaches, and I got talked into helping out with the team. And that helping out grew into a love of the game. I didn't really want to do it. I didn't think that I would enjoy it, but I absolutely fell in love with coaching right on the spot at that point. Fast forward a couple years later, had the opportunity to move back to Houston, which is my hometown, and got a job at the high school that I went to, Kincaid, as an assistant coach. So I was the offensive coordinator there for 2 years. Then had the opportunity to move to Dallas with a coworker of mine. He got the head coaching job here at the Episcopal School of Dallas. I was the offensive coordinator. Then 2 years later, the opportunity came for me to become the head football coach here. Jumped on that and have never looked back since. And so, I've been here at ESD now for a total of 12 years, and it's been a fantastic ride for me.
You spoke there about your playing career, a running back at Rice, and unfortunately suffering the injury. But how did your time as a player impact on your decision to go into coaching?
Well, yeah. So it's interesting you asked that. So my injury that I occurred was in my senior year. It was actually second to the last game. And I was attempting to finish up my degree in electrical engineering and went on to take a fifth year to do that. And the coaches at that time asked me to become a grad assistant. So I was actually a grad assistant coaching for the Rice Owls for 1 year, my fifth year, and absolutely loved that. I still didn't think that was what I wanted to do long term because I was focused on my engineering degree. But once I had the opportunity to come back into coaching, all those experiences, playing at the collegiate level, working as a grad assistant for that 1 year, it just really helped prepare me for it. And I felt like I was ready to jump into it again.
That's how a lot of the great coaches get started is as a grad assistant at their alma mater. So it's interesting that you took that route as well, and you had the opportunity to learn at the collegiate level.
Absolutely. So coming to the high school and being able to talk to the players who had aspirations of playing collegiate football, it just really, kind of gave me an extra piece of experience that I could share with them.
You don't necessarily have the typical head football coaching background, though. You have your background is electrical engineering. You work for ExxonMobil in a marketing role, which is it's just as a coach, it's completely the opposite of what you would expect other coaches to have, maybe.
Right. No, I would agree with that. And then I also get a couple of eyebrows because in addition to being the head football coach at ESD, I also teach physics in the upper school. So, not a lot of head football coaches teach physics, but I'm happy to do it. I don't know which one I love more because I really enjoy, especially when my football players are in my classroom with me. That's like the icing on the cake is to have both worlds merge together at the same time.
And I suppose, how did your time in the corporate world, has that been a benefit to you as a coach in terms of recruiting or speaking to boosters or giving you a bit of a competitive edge when it comes to the other side of your life, I suppose?
I think so. I think so. Obviously, when you're in the corporate world and in marketing and sales, you're doing a lot of presentations. You're having
Mm,
to stand up in front of folks and talk and give presentations. So, obviously, that's also part of the head football coaching role. Is you do have to get up in front of your team and your parents at banquets and talk to your community about why they should support the efforts that you and your program are trying to achieve. So those things definitely helped prepare me for this role.
I was reading an article there before we had the opportunity to sit down, and it looked at it spoke about your role as a physics teacher, as the head of the head of the football program there, the program director, and also now as head coach. I mean, how do you manage to balance all those things together? Things that are so demanding in their own right.
Yeah, that it is tough. It is tough. The hard part actually comes after the season, which may sound backwards, but for me, that's kind of the way it works. During the season, it's kind of at the start of the school year, so it's not as taxing. We're just kicking off the classes, getting to introduce the kids to the subject that we're talking about, and then football ends before the first semester is over. The challenge for me comes after football season when the recruiting part comes,
Mm,
because we have a ton of recruiters that come through our school on an annual basis. Somewhere between 40 and 50 recruiters come through wanting to meet and talk to our
yeah.
guys. And, you know, normally they just drop in because they assume that the head football coach is in his office or somewhere free. And I'm always having to say, okay, I got to schedule this with you because I got a class from 1 to 2. So that part becomes hard, trying to manage the interactions with the recruiters and the day-to-day stuff. But I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. And I've been doing it now for, 10 years. So I've kind of
Mm.
got a routine that works.
You're heading to Ireland in just a few weeks' time to take part in the 2024 Global Ireland Football Tournament. Is this going to be your first time in Europe and in Ireland, or have you done some traveling or some exploring the world before?
Well, I've obviously done, as a global marketing manager, I've traveled to various parts of the world. However, it will be my absolute first time to go to Ireland. So I'm super excited about that. Trying to figure out, because I do love to play golf, how to bring some golf clubs and find time to get on one of the courses there. But I will say at least I am used to the international travel.
Mm,
I've been on those 20 plus hour flights.
yeah.
So I feel like I'm used to that. I'm worried about my players getting adjusted to that. But I look forward to it. I just think it's an awesome experience just to see parts of the world for my coaching staff, for the family members that are going, and obviously for the players.
How did the opportunity come about to participate in this year's gift tournament, and what was it that appealed to you about it and made you agree to take part?
Well, I in my own time here, I was trying to facilitate a travel game with our players where we would have to get on an airplane and fly somewhere, in Texas, because Texas is pretty large. So there's parts of Texas where you wouldn't want to drive, and have our players just get on a plane and have that collegiate experience. And lo and behold, we got an AD right about a year ago from today. And when he came in, he had some experience with the gift program from his
Mm,
old school that he worked at. And he mentioned to me, he's like, hey, there's an opportunity where we might have an opportunity to go play Dublin, Ireland. And the first time he said it, of course, I kind of thought he was pulling my leg, right? And it took 2 or 3 times for him to actually keep repeating it for me to believe that it was actually something that we would do, because it was beyond my wildest imagination. And once he was serious about it, obviously fell in love with the idea, knew that it would be a great opportunity for our kids and our program. So, I mean, I had no doubt, no second guess about it. We were in 100% from the time he actually mentioned it.
your opponent in Dublin, you're playing in the main afternoon slot on the day in Dublin. The team you'll be facing are the mighty IMG Academy from Florida, one of the best high school football programs in the country in America. How are preparations going for that game?
Well, I'm focusing on the fact that we're flying to Ireland. It's going to be a great trip. The challenge of playing IMG, it's going to be tough, right? Um, if you look at our history, we've played some tough teams in the past. We don't necessarily shy away from that. I would say IMG is probably a little step up from that. I think our boys are excited about it. They love to play up to the challenge. I think it only helps us as we prepare for our conference play. Down the road. So, and if we do have to play one of these tougher teams, I try to do it early in the season. And I look forward to it. I mean, at the end of the day, football is football, and we'll get after it, and we'll put our best foot forward and see what happens.
Have you started in general preparations for the season ahead, or are you now just getting into your preseason / all season program? And what does that kind of look for your team?
Sure. Well, we do a little bit of 7-on-7. We did this past year, so we participated in some 7-on-7 tournaments in June. We're kind of heavily focused on 7-on-7. Now that July rolled around, we started getting more into, for example, our full offense, starting to work on our run game, RPO, and stuff like that. So we've been going at it for about 2.5 weeks now. We've got a retreat next week where we take our kids away for 3 days. And then after that, we're going to have 2 days. We'll get right after it, have a scrimmage, and then we're on that plane flying to Dublin. So, it feels like the clock is turning super fast and, and that we don't have a lot of time, but we're trying to make the most of what we do have right now.
And would you typically start kind of slow with your players and kind of ease them back into the rigors of a full football training and then slowly ramp it up? Or what's your kind of thought process there?
I would say, we're ramping up now. We're ramping up now. Our focus is on conditioning. Again, less than 4 weeks, we're going to be on a plane going to Ireland. So we're going to be pushing our guys starting now at the retreat next week to start working on conditioning and just going full speed ahead, getting ready for that first scrimmage, which will be the week before we obviously play in Dublin. So we're ramping up now versus kind of just ramping down. So we're full speed ahead and we're going to keep going. Yeah.
I did a bit of digging, a bit of research, as I like to do before I have my guests on, and
Right.
I was trying to find the last time that ESD won a championship. Am I correct in saying it's been quite a while? And is that something that you try to aim for every season going into a new season?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So first 2 years as head coach, we won the championship my first year, went back to the championship the second year. We were there a couple years back. We qualified for our 4A championship, fell short then, but that's always a goal of ours is to figure out, what can we do to get better and to always be, working towards a championship bid. So, we've got a pretty good team this year. I'm excited about it. We've got tough competition down in Houston, which is where a lot of our conference opponents are. They're always tough. They're always good. So it's going to be a challenge, but one that I think our guys are up to for this season.
As a football coach and a teacher, a high school teacher, you have a dual role almost as a teacher here and a teacher there. So, what are some of the, I suppose, the principles or values that you try to instill in your students?
Yeah. So one of the things I tell, especially the players that I have that are in my class, is give 100% wherever you are. If you're in the classroom, keep your mind on things in the classroom. When you're on the football field, keep your mind on what's going on the football field, and to just give your best, give your all in everything that you do. So that's just a constant message that we give in the classroom and on the football field. We ask our guys to be stand up, guys to represent us in the community as well. Either if we're on a classroom field trip or if we're at a away game at somebody else's stadium, how they act, how they represent ESD is of high importance, and we try to stress that 100% of the time.
You've been with ESD now for the guts of 13 years. You must have some pretty amazing memories and some really highlights that stand out to you. I mean, what would some of those be?
Oh my gosh. Yes, we could probably talk for an hour just on those. Just kind of quickly going back in chronological order, starting with the most recent. So last year, we played up against a 5A team, 5A public school team, Walnut Grove. And, Obviously, much bigger roster than we had. The guys were larger on the line, more athletic across the board. We were down close to 20 points going the fourth quarter and had to make a strong comeback, and actually did come back and win that game, which again, when you start to have moments like that, that builds the belief in your team that, hey, as long as we keep fighting, there's always a chance for us to be successful. We've had some tough games against our crosstown rival, St. Mark's, where we had a double overtime game a while back, and we had to come back in the last seconds and win that. We've had games down in Houston where we were down 7 points and decided to go for two because we were on the road in the last minutes to win the game 52-51. So I mean, there's a ton of games where we've had to pull out. So yeah, it's been fun, and those memories they'll last with me forever. And I really enjoy giving those types of memories to the players, because those players that were part of that, they will remember that for the rest of their lives. Kind of like I'm hoping they're going to remember this trip to Ireland for the rest of their lives.
I was just going to say, hopefully your trip to Ireland in a few weeks' time will be one of those all-time highlights for you as a coach and for your players as well. Coach, this has been a fantastic conversation, getting an insight into your methodologies and your program. I just have a couple of more questions that I'd love to hear your answers on. To you as a coach, what does success look like?
Success for us is when we get our entire team to buy in 100% into what our team goals are and our team values are, right? A lot of that for this year in particular, we're stressing sportsmanship, how you handle yourself in difficult situations, right? We know that we have probably one of the toughest schedules that I've ever had in my 13 years here at ESD. And the only thing I'm looking for and asking for our guys is to have fight all the way through the final whistle, all 4 quarters of every single game, to push themselves to do more than they thought that they were capable of doing. And that starts in practice and carries over to the game. So, football in itself, it's all about teaching these guys how to be successful after high school, after college, when they get married and go on. So a successful football season for me is when me and my coaching staff have helped instill some of those key characteristics and traits that they can carry on beyond the football field.
I mean, you're so right, and every coach that I've spoken to has kind of echoed that sentiment that football is not about football. Football is about preparing young men for life and for building character and discipline and all those great things. So, I mean, it seems to me like you have those same kind of core values and beliefs as a coach.
Right. Absolutely. And I just know personally, as a football player, there have been times in my life where, life is hard for everybody. Everybody's got moments in life where it doesn't go perfectly. And I can always go back to examples for when I did have my injury, for example, in football, which at the time for me, that was the end of the world, right? That was like the biggest thing that, the worst thing that could ever happen to me. How was I going to get past this? But I did. And, learning how to overcome, learning how to push yourself beyond what you think your limits are. Those are the things that I experienced, and those are things that I'm hoping that every player that comes through this program will learn as being a part of this program.
Coach, I have one final question for you that I like to finish up with everyone I bring on. And it's a bit of a tricky one, so I don't mean to spring this on you. You've obviously had a fantastic football career, both as a player now and as a coach, and have had great success off and on the field. But if you could pick just one memory from your playing days and coaching career, what would your favorite football memory be?
Oh, wow.
I told you it was a good one.
It was a good one. No, that is a great question. There are many. There are many that stand out. And right now, as you asked me that, and I'm thinking through it, I mentioned that Walnut Grove game. We were down 19 points. We had so many players injured that game that kind of fought through the injury to help stay in and help us come back from that. But I'm actually going to go back further than that to the last time we were at a championship game. And we were actually playing my alma mater, Kincaid, in the championship game. And on the second play of the game, our quarterback, Patrick Burke at the time, injured his leg, and he was basically should have probably come out of the game, but didn't, right? And he actually pretty much on one leg stayed through the entire game for the most part, trying to help carry his team. We had another player on the defensive side, who our linebacker, who also had an injury and refused to come out of the game. I mean, he was like, this was so important to him. He had no aspirations of playing college football, but in that moment, he wanted to do everything he could to help his team be successful. And the combination of seeing those two individuals, opposite sides of the ball, just give everything they had for what turned out, to not be a successful game. We ended up losing the game, but the memory of what they gave, the effort that they put forth, that will stick with me probably more than any other memory that I've had.
High school football and football at all levels, it always throws up so many fantastic times like that it's always great to hear different people's favorite football memories. So, Coach, thank you for sharing that with me. That sounds very special. But look, it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I'm very excited to see your team in action against IMG in Dublin in a few weeks' time, and we'll catch up when you're over here. And best of luck for that, Coach.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. And we definitely look forward to it. And so we'll see you in a few weeks.